Hi there, I'm your host McAuley Tucker, and you're listening to The McAuley Tucker Show, the podcast where I sit down with some of the most accomplished and fascinating individuals in the entertainment and business industry. From celebrities to industry leaders, our guests offer unique perspectives and inspiring stories that will educate and inform you. Join me as I sit down with my next guest to cover their humble beginnings, challenges they faced, as well as their accomplishments in life. You are bound to learn something new, so sit back and enjoy the interview. Today on the show, we'll be speaking with Cate. Cate was an actor, and now he is part of a band called Fencer. He was part of the show Pushing Daisies. He played a younger version of the main character, Ned. And on this episode, we just talk about acting, transitioning that topic to music, and it was just an overall great conversation. And I also got my co-host on this episode, Ruthie. So yeah, I enjoyed the show.
So throughout your career, there must have been some pivotal moments that ignited your passion for your craft. And we're just wondering if you could share a moment with us that really influenced your decision to pursue a career in acting.
Well, with acting, I don't know if there was specifically a pivotal moment because I got into it when I was so young. I started when I was 6 and I did it for about a decade. My parents and we moved to LA when I was like 4 maybe, but they were from LA, so we were just kind of moving back. They had been exploring for a while. I was born in Vermont, and I was super into doing entertainment-esque stuff. I was doing like ballet and stuff in Athens, Georgia, and I was like really into it. And so they put me in an acting class, and then like a manager saw me or whatever, and however all that stuff generally goes. So I don't know if there was an exact moment with that. With music, which is now, my band has kind of been my whole thing for the last 7 years or so. There was definitely, I think, after I kind of got burnt out with acting, just kind of getting into high school, it was, I'd been doing it for so long. So I was just losing the passion, I guess, right? You grow up and you start to find new interests and things like that. And I had just done it so hard for so long. I wanted to do something in film. I wanted to like direct or write or stuff like that. And so throughout high school, that's kind of what I was messing around with. And then I took a really terrible film class, which turned me off from everything entirely. And I was like, no, I'm good. So I started a band with a friend, and we just were messing around. We started writing songs. That was like really the first time I had ever even attempted to do that in my life. And I was showing them to some people around me, and everyone was like, you can kind of write a song. And I was like, huh, okay, I'll just do this. And that was it. And then I met up with the guys in my current band, and we've been together for, since I was 19 now. So now I'm 26 in next month, which is awful.
It's a very beautiful story. I mean, just like I've spoken to a lot of amazing people who have gone through a very similar life, starting out acting like as a child actor, and then, just kind of doing other things. And it's just kind of cool, specifically for you, going from acting to music. And again, you've been doing it at a young age. Through my research, I think 5 years old, you were doing a lot of acting. I recently had a guy on my show who was a child actor in the 60s. And he was doing it since he was like a baby, because he wasn't a crier or anything like that. So they just had him do stuff. And so one thing that really stood out to me in my research about you, and I don't know why, but it just really stood out to me, was improvisation. I'm not sure how true this is, but according to my research, since you were 5, there was a lot of, improvisation involved. I think comedy tour, whatever like that. But I was just really interested. I'm not sure if this is something that was a big part of your life growing up, but was there any specific moment or experience from, early improv, that you're like, wow, this really helps me understand acting a bit more? Has it impacted you even outside of acting, I guess, improvisation at a young age?
Sure. Well, I did improv classes growing up. I did a lot of acting classes, but I was in improv for a handful of years. I don't know if there was something particularly pivotal in it. It was just kind of one of the things I did. Again, I was never like, I know a lot of like child actors like forced into it or stuff like that. I was never forced into it. I was super down with everything that was going on. I was, of course, really little, so I didn't, fully comprehend everything, but I was into it. And so that was just, it was just one of the many things I was doing. Of cool, I go to auditions all the time, go to my acting classes, go to my improv classes. I think that was just fun. I mean, I don't know necessarily what I picked up from it. I was never a particularly comedic actor. Like I would audition for, you know, Disney pilots and commercials constantly, and I would never get those because I was just far more of like a theatrical kid. So I don't know. I think it's fun whenever I do get a chance to do improv. I think it's a good time. I love good improv games.
I do drama currently in school, and I love improv, so I think that doing improv is pretty cool. But one thing that we were wondering is, so you did a couple commercials in your career. Is there like any outstanding moments or experiences in your commercial career that like have left an impression on you, or like some great memories from those that are like particularly funny, or like a big mess ups or anything like that?
God, I can't even remember. I know, I mean, I did, because I would never get commercials. That was the main thing. I would audition for commercials constantly, and you had your like commercial kids who, because it's super silly. I mean, the entire industry's changed now, but when I was doing it, every audition was in person, all of them. And it would be, you know, somewhere in LA, it'd be like downtown, which is like a, you know, going to be during rush hour. So it's an entire day event for like your one stupid commercial audition that then they have like callbacks for, and then sometimes second callbacks for your 10-second part in this commercial, which is completely ridiculous. And so I would go to these commercial auditions constantly, and there would be, and they would have like a ridiculous amount of people there. And you would have your kids who just got every single commercial, who like, that was all they did. And national commercials, I don't know if you guys know, they pay unbelievably well. It's like silly. Because I think you get residuals every single time it airs, depending on the networking of it or whatever. And so there would be these kids who got like, you know, 6 national commercials a year, and they would just be like, their parents would just be loaded, and they'd be like, dude, they're set for life. I did I can't even remember the other commercials I did. I know I did a few of them. I did a McDonald's commercial, which was the only like semi-national thing I did. And for some reason, something got messed up in like the back end, and it ended up only being like kind of national. I don't even know why, but like it wasn't the full thing. And even then, it was sick. It was like I went to like a nice private school for like 2 years just off that commercial. And so yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of that. I did some other stuff, but it was like there was some print work, and there I did like a couple Dianetics commercials for Scientology.
What?
Which resulted in me going to a Scientologist private middle school for 2 years, which was very fun and interesting. So yeah, but the commercials were really never my strong suit. I mean, everything else was mostly, I did a lot of TV. I think that was my main thing.
Yeah, no, and I've spoken with a few people who've done commercials. I that's why I was going to ask about that. I've asked people, you know, of course you get little goodies sometimes from the commercials, you know, things like that. And it's really interesting. I spoke with one guy who was, I think, in the first commercial for like Orbeez, which is kind of cool. He was he did the voice of Milo in Mars Needs Moms, which you may or may not know. It's like 2011.
I'm familiar with the name. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, it kind of bombed in the office. They had
Sure.
Seth Green doing the voice, and then they had him come on to replace it because Seth Green didn't sound like 11-year-old. So, but yeah, no, you mentioned TV. You know, almost kind of wrapping up. Of course, I mentioned before Pushing Daisies. My parents introduced that to me maybe when I was 12 or 13. We have it on DVD, and just watching it, man, it was really neat. And of course, you've lived that life. You've gone through that awesome experience, and I know you've talked about it here and there, but it was just a really cool show. I think it's my personal opinion, really underrated. It's so unique and special, and it must have been a really great opportunity, even giving you experiences and lessons that could be applied to your music life now. But I'd love to ask, you know, as you know, you were in that world for that period of time, would love to hear about, personal transformations. What was this like, man? Interacting with the people. How did it change you?
It's weird looking back at acting now because, like I said, I was so young, so I really wasn't taking it in or comprehending what was going on. I wasn't like wildly successful or anything, but Pushing Daisies was, a period of time where I did have some really decent success and cool stuff was going on. And I didn't fully understand it. I mean, I was into it, but it's interesting to look back now. I think that was a really cool show. I'm happy that looking back in my legacy of acting, that like the thing that I'm tied to, like the thing I'm known for, I mean, not even really, but anyone who knows me, that's usually the thing, is a really cool project. I haven't even fully watched it back since I was a kid, but I was watching it, a little bit of it with my girlfriend a couple months ago. We watched like a handful of the first few episodes because it was on like HBO Max or something. And it's good. It's cool. It's very unique and colorful, and it's funny, but it has purpose and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's a good cast, really good cast. So I'm happy to have been a part of that. Unfortunately, it got killed by the writer's strike, which is back again to greet us at the moment. But I don't know. I think it was good. I think the biggest thing that I took away from acting, I don't think acting was a particularly positive thing for me. I don't think I had negative experiences like you hear from a lot of child actors, like from the industry or anything. Everything around that was fine. My mom was great. The people I worked with and met, my managers, my agents, they were all great. But it was just a weird lifestyle, excuse me, to be brought up in. And I think ultimately in the long run, it kind of messed with me. My mental health, I've been through a whole mental health journey in the last many years. And I just don't think acting is from such a young age is a very positive thing on your brain and how you comprehend things, and just, I don't know, living this separate kind of life than everyone else. I'm sure it's fun for some people, and it wasn't bad. I mean, I'm thankful for it, but I've definitely kind of come into myself with Fencer, my band.
So at the tail end of that, you were saying that as much as you're grateful for Pushing Daisies, you can also accept that, like, acting for you, although good, in some ways it has affected you, not entirely negatively, but not all positive.
Sure.
If you could, like, reimagine Pushing Daisies and turn it into a show that reflects your own life in a way, how would you reimagine it?
Sure, I'd have to think about it for a long period of time. I don't know. I think that one of the cool things about Pushing Daisies was, and my role assisted in this, was the kind of flashback storytelling of and having it be a consistent thing of just like opening many of the episodes with, here's a little peek at this main character's childhood that kind of, resonates with whatever the theme of the episode is. Kind of like, oh, how did they come from this? Why is this happening now? Well, here's the little connection or something. I thought that was really cool. And I guess, I mean, if it was a show about my life, I guess continuing with that aspect, I don't know. I think my one thing with all media, whether it's TV, movies, music, especially, people are always asking, like, what kind of music do you listen to? Or what kind of stuff do you like? I'm like, I don't know, anything, as long as they're doing cool things. Like if you do something cool and I go, oh, okay, that was a unique idea. That's it. That's all. I don't know. That's it for me. With songwriting and stuff, that's all I'm trying to do, is just like, what's something unique? There's so much stuff that's very unmemorable, and I don't know, just kind of like it just exists. And I think one of the strange things I picked up from acting was, and my name being Field, was that I got this weird kind of uniqueness complex of feeling like I was always like super unique or something. And so that's obviously carried into everything I try and do art wise, by just trying to make it stand out and be different. And that's what I look for in other forms of media too. So it's kind of a non-answer to your question, but
Yeah.
I would have to sit down and write a script for a few months to get back to you. But
yeah, but like YouTube, I know growing up in one of your like really older, like I think 2007 maybe interview, you're talking about how you do YouTube, and I like you of course went down the rabbit hole. You have like a really old YouTube channel, and one thing that and this kind of correlates with the next maybe question, but like you did a lot of like those like, which I thought was really funny, kind of sidetracking. You did a lot of those videos where you sped up the music and sang and like read along. It's kind of cool because now you got TikTok, which is kind of like that, where they speed up the songs. And so you like predicted kind of like that whole thing. Wrapping up kind of the movie things. I know we're talking about music next, but I wanted to wrap up. This is super weird. I've never spoken with somebody. I've had like 30 plus guests. I've never had somebody who's voiced an animal in a film. And I'm just like, I don't know. This really, I want to know how that works. I've spoken to the guy who did Porky Pig, like for all the past little bit, some people like that, Andy from Toy Story, a few voice actors in cartoons, but voicing an animal, if you remember, like, how do you do that? What's that look like?
Yeah, dude, the Buddies movies, I think 2 of them were released with my voice in it, but I recorded the full movie for like 4 or 5 of them. And and I'm credited on the ones that they didn't end up using me in. They just felt like my voice was too deep at that point. I had gotten too old. So they had someone redub Buddha, which was the character I played. But my name is still all over the box and stuff, and I got credited, and they did. I'm like, that's weird. But I think the 2 that got released, I think, were Space Buddies and Santa Buddies. And it was so easy. Like, it was so nothing. I went in, the entire movie, both of them would be done in like a day early. I mean, my dialogue, obviously. I'd go into a booth, sit there with headphones on, have my mic in front of me, and then just go through every line that the character had in the script, just back to back. And they'd have me do it different ways. The director would tell me what he wanted out of it. They'd have me eat apples a lot because otherwise I'd get a little smacky with and that's just like dries up your mouth. So yeah, and I mean the voice I did, I've never been able to do voices really. So I mean the voice I did for those movies was just how I spoke at the time. So I just kind of added a little bit of this to it or something. So it was just kind of like, it was so easy. I don't know. Go in, be done in a few hours, and then maybe they'd have me come back and do a few pickups on a few things. But I think probably across everything I did there, they were all like, 4 or 5 sessions in total, maybe. Just because, and yeah, I never interacted with any dogs or any of the other actors or anything. I saw them at the premieres, but yeah, there's no interaction with anyone.
Darn, that's too bad, man.
Who are you bummed that I didn't get to?
I don't know. It just sucks. Like when you're like, because I know I've spoken to a few people, doing voice acting. It's kind of cool being with the people because you're able to like, I guess like the performance. You're with somebody. It's kind of like
Sure.
You can bounce it off. But I mean, I was like, I wonder if it's any different than voicing a character in cartoon. But then I realized that you're just voicing it. The guys are like syncing the mouth and stuff.
Well, I think you're giving the Buddies movies a little too much credit here. I don't know if that's standard procedure for all voiceover roles, but yeah, no, there was no kinship between actors working with each other. It was just me.
Darn.
McAuley sounds devastated by that. I'm a little devastated. The buddy movies for me were the movies that I would rent from the library every other week. They were something that I watched a lot, actually.
Hey, dude, Space Buddies, I think we put it on recently. It still bangs, man.
No, yeah, they're so good. I haven't.
Dog. He's a dogmanaut, they call it.
I haven't thought about them in forever. They're like the movies that are like definitely a part of my childhood. Just don't remember them like at all. But you're going away from acting and have been for a while. But your artistic journey has taken you into exploring the world of music, which is very interesting. What inspired this transition specifically, and how has immersing yourself into music like enriched your creative expression?
I'll answer that part first. I think it's really interesting that people are constantly comparing like the music industry and the acting and things like that, and like they're similar in the aspect of being all a part of the entertainment industry, but it's always weird that I feel like, oh, actors are then becoming musicians or musicians are being actors or something, because they're so ridiculously different in their approach to being quote unquote creative. Acting, you're creative, but you're not in control. You don't make the calls. You're entering somebody else's vision, and then you're bringing what you can to it. But acting is like being a session musician, basically. And that's cool. That's cool if people like that. That's great. Doing music, like original music as an original artist and trying to kind of do that whole thing is, there are no rules. It's like the Wild West. It's like, go, okay, figure it out. There's no clear roadmap for success. There's no what you should be doing or what you're supposed to. You don't have auditions. It would be so much easier if the music industry just had auditions you could go to constantly. But it's like you have to make it all up yourself. And so the aspect of approaching it like from a creative standpoint, I think really changes everything when you are now the producer, director, all the actors, everything. You're making it all from scratch, and that's what I found that I vibed with a lot more than acting, and why like I don't think I would go back to acting if I in the future, if there were opportunities that were presented because of where I'm at in music, for like some kind of acting role here or there or something, I'd consider it. But I like having control. That's one thing that I've learned quite a bit. And I'm the front man of the band, and I'm the only guitarist and the lead singer, and so we all have very, very open and equal input on everything. But like, I like to have the vision and execute it the way I want to. And you can't do that with acting. So you kind of can, but not to any similar extent. Like you can just do literally whatever you want in music. That's what's so cool about it. And you want to make certain decisions and kind of approach it from a competitive standpoint if you want to make a career out of it, right? So you have to be conscious of that. But you can just do anything. And then I think the other part of what you said was the like a big pivotal moment or something, or when that happened. It was kind of what I was saying before of like, starting that band and kind of learning about songwriting and that I could write songs and stuff like that. And just, I didn't want to go to college. I hated school so much. And it didn't seem particularly beneficial for music or acting or anything like that. So I was like, all right, I don't know anything about any of this. I'm just going to like saturate myself in the industry for the next 5 years and see what happens. And that was incredibly beneficial, because now you still really never know anything. We're all complete idiots, but I feel like I'm kind of starting to figure some stuff out, and we've had some really, really close calls of success consistently. So it's been an encouraging process to kind of keep us going.
It's wonderful just to see all this amazing music. Fencer, I was listening through this, and it's just super cool. It gets me going, and I'm like, it's really wonderful to see that you're at this point where you're satisfied, you're happy, you've gone to this point where you're able to produce content that you enjoy, from going like from YouTube to movies, to now making music, it's really interesting. And I was listening, you know, your music often touches on themes, you know, of seeking, you know, refuge and creating a sanctuary, things like that. Some really amazing songs listening through it today. I'd love to hear, you know, could you share how these themes resonate with your own experiences and the impact they have on your artistic, you know, expression?
Yeah, a lot of our songs are oriented around mental health, and kind of navigating a lot of that. When I got into my early 20s, I started really kind of dealing with a lot of issues related to that. And so I had to kind of figure out, I had a whole journey of figuring that out, and am still doing so every day. I have something called borderline personality disorder, which not fun, not a fun thing to deal with. So it's been kind of a process of doing that. I'm a life coach part-time now too, just because I have a lot of experience learning about mental health and many years of therapy. So I'm actually very excited that I can share that with, you know, other punk ass teenagers and stuff who need it. But yeah, our music is very much oriented around that. And that's, I guess, I mean, each song has its own kind of theme going on, but a lot of it is about borderline. That was a really, talk about pivotal things. That was a really pivotal thing for me to learn about myself when I was like 21 or something, or 22. And that changed a lot of how I deal with things in my head. So there's a lot of our music that's kind of about that, and the lyrics are kind of revolving around those things. My hope with Fencer is that I can create a platform where I can just be super, super vocal about that stuff. Because luckily we're in a time, right, that like, and people say this all the time, but it's like nowadays people care a little bit more about mental health than they used to, and there's less stigma around it, which is totally true. And I think that's mostly a good thing. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's lyrics are always the very last thing we do with the songs. Like I often will write them. Cameron, our drummer, he'll be like, "Hey, I have the mics ready to record vocals," and I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, give me 10 minutes. I gotta write lyrics." He's like, "You still haven't finished lyrics?" I'm like, "No." But that I think pulls some creativity out of it too, which I enjoy.
I think it's really awesome that not only you and your band, but just people in general can feel so comfortable, and just, not that it's a bad thing, but just are willing to pour their heart and soul and all their feelings into something that they are creating, whether it's music like you're doing, or if it's acting for someone, or if it's like physical art. But earlier you said that you do life coaching and stuff like that on the side. And we're wondering, from like your experiences, what do you think is like an important and like crucial quality that someone needs to possess to like empower and inspire their clients when coaching through life? And what do you think makes a good coach?
I think it's different for everyone. And I think the funny thing about it is like just kind of acknowledging that really no one knows they're talking about. Really, I'm not in your head. I know the things that have worked and that I've learned from my experiences, but that's not the same for everybody, and that's not going to work the same for everybody. There's so much involved in like upbringing and, you know, the way your brain processes information and kind of, you know, thought patterns and stuff like that. I think knowing that is a really important thing in trying to, I don't know, coach somebody else. I also think just being super real about everything sounds weird, but like trying to just allow the person to be super open and honest, make fun of things, and just kind of, I don't know, relate to them on a level of like, you know, how it's easier, I think, for me with kids who are kind of like teenagers and stuff, because I can kind of guide them through things and, you know, share a lot of techniques I've learned. And tools and DBT skills and things like that maybe they haven't looked at before. So I don't know.
And being a coach, must be really fulfilling, being able to help people. I really appreciate that too. That's what I enjoy about conversations on this show, is just sitting down and hearing people's life, just with the end goal of educating young people. In a way, you're helping people understand the world around them, before they take a big step into something they want to do. And it's really also cool to see that you're taking your music and kind of taking this coaching and kind of putting together I guess you could say you're coaching people through the music in a sense. You're making people aware of these things, the life. And with that Fencer, you do have any like really fun little projects coming up? I was just really cool, again, and really awesome music, man. Kudos to you, just being able to do all this really cool stuff. And I believe in this area that you're at, you're definitely going to get a lot more people following and checking this out.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, we just put out our first album, our debut album in February. So we're still very excited about that. You should go check it out. Self-titled, Censored. And we did that entirely ourselves. We produced the entire thing, engineered it all, just us. I had one guy mix the whole thing. So it was a very small personnel, and we were very proud of that. And yeah, I mean, obviously we play all the time in LA. We tour as much as we can. We have a couple decent cool things set up for like Midwest and East Coast later this year that has not been announced yet, but that will be coming. Eventually Canada, you know what, it's probably, as far as going out of country, that's probably the first place we'll go, because again, the other two guys in the band are brothers, and they're both Canadian, incredibly Canadian, and so I imagine that will definitely happen. But yeah, if you're in America, keep up to date on our socials. We tour and we play all the time. Sorry, I played a show last night and I'm like, voice is going out. But yeah, we're working on new stuff. I mean, we're constantly working on new stuff, and there will be new releases soon. The next single and video are already ready to go. We're just kind of, getting everything ready on the back end to do a little push.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, as I always like to, conclude the conversations, what is one thing that you would like to pass on to any number of the people listening to this point, of our conversation, that you believe will impact them and, help them in their everyday life?
Oof. Talk to somebody. Be again, it's different for everyone, but for me, the biggest thing that has been the most kind of, we've said pivotal a lot in this conversation, but I'll say it again, like the most pivotal thing in my entire life is just being like ridiculously open with how I'm feeling to people around me, and being able to just verbalize and have that emotional awareness and just share it constantly. Because for me, feeling understood and having other people understand what I'm feeling is super important to me being able to exist. So there are lots of people, especially with coaching, who like, maybe have that outlet with like one parent or something, or just with me as their coach, or like don't talk to their friend. I'm like, I have constructed my life around the handful of close people that I have and that I like keep in my circle. I can be open with them about anything all the time, and that is crucial to my survival. So that's what I recommend. I think that's an incredible thing, and I think a lot of people don't prioritize that. But to each their own.